Yo folks, welcome back to my channel. I've got another cracker. Delighted to be joined by Maclean. Thank you ever so much for coming on.
Darren, it's my pleasure. It's good to talk to you.
Cheers. So, what were you like growing up?
What was I like growing up? Well, I grew up in a place called Invergordon, which you've probably never heard of before, but up near Inverness, that way, up in the Highlands. So it was all very quiet, I guess. All a sort of rural sort of situation. But I just kind of I wasn't very good at school. I had the concentration span of a soggy cornflake, to be honest. So I wasn't very good at school, and so I liked sport, and particularly I liked football. So I guess a lot of my school time and my early years were spent playing football. Maybe the people who played with me would say not very well, but I played football.
What kind of football? Walking football?
Oh no, it was full running football. No, one thing I could do was run. Sometimes the ball confused me when I had the ball, but no, I wasn't bad actually. I was a decent sort of amateur footballer as I was growing up as well. So I've always loved football, and I've just been really lucky that football's kind of followed me right through my life.
What position did you play?
I played midfield. I was like a midfield dynamo. I ran all day, and I was a grafter. I scored a few goals as well, but yeah, midfield was my position.
What made you be a presenter?
Well, when I left school, I hadn't a clue what I was going to want to do. But one of the things that I did enjoy doing at school was writing stories. So I kind of thought maybe journalism, maybe to be a journalist, writing for a newspaper, whatever, that might be a good way to go. So I was lucky enough to get a job with the local paper up there in Inverness, the Highland News Group, and they sort of trained me as a journalist, and I worked away up there. And then after a while, I got a bit bored because the place was so quiet. And part of my training was down in Newcastle, and Newcastle was a buzz. Newcastle was really exciting. So when I went back to Invergordon and Inverness, I thought maybe I should get out of here quite soon. So I moved to Aberdeen, and Aberdeen maybe doesn't seem to like the bright lights, but when you come from Invergordon, it is quite an exciting place to go to. It's a lot bigger, obviously. So I moved to Aberdeen and continued my sort of journalism down there, working with a news agency. And then I was around when a new local radio station opened up in Aberdeen, and I was lucky enough to get a job, and I became the commentator. And I guess that was the start of my broadcasting.
What was it like? What was it like starting your career on the radio?
Oh, it was really good. I'll tell you what, Darren. First day at North Sound, the guy that was running the newsroom, the head of news guy, said, "Who likes football in here?" And I put my hand up, and he said, "Right, you're the commentator." And that was it. There was no job interview. It was just kind of, "Who fancies it?" And I said, "I fancy it." So I did it, and it coincided. It was a time long before you were around, but it was when Sir Alex Ferguson was manager at Aberdeen at the time, basically, and Aberdeen were the best team in Scotland for a good few years back in the 80s, and they also won the European Cup Winners' Cup 1983. So that the time I was working with North Sound coincided with the time they had their greatest ever manager, and they had their greatest ever results, and they won all these trophies, league, Scottish Cup, European trophies, and all the rest of it. So it was really lucky for me that I was working up there when Aberdeen had a brilliant team. So it was fantastic for me. I was traveling all around Europe and all the rest of it, and enjoying all the success that the club had at that stage. So I guess it was great for my career that I was associated with that, to be honest.
First football memory?
First football memory, well, I guess my first football memory would probably be playing, just the excitement of pulling on the school strip, you know, when I was representing the school, when I got into the team and all that sort of stuff. I guess when you're a kid, that's really exciting. I mean, I've had lots of amazing football moments. I've been really lucky, but you know, in terms of the first one, it would probably just be, yeah, that excitement of playing and you know, scoring goals and all that sort of stuff. That you can't beat it.
What team do you support?
Well, it's a good question, and nobody ever believes me, whatever I say anyway, to be honest, because I'm based in Glasgow, so whatever you say, people want to label you with something else. But I mean, as I've been telling you, I'd sort of a spell in Aberdeen, so I was 10 years living and working in Aberdeen, and they had a great team and they had great success and everything. So I've still got a soft spot for Aberdeen because that's where I was at the time. But where I grew up, of course, is kind of the homeland of Ross County. So when I was young, I used to play football for school in the morning, and then I'd go and watch Ross County in the afternoon. And at that time, again, long before your time, they were in the Highland League, you know, so it was a completely different setup. So I'm a Ross County supporter forevermore because that's where I come from. And obviously, you know, what they've done has been absolutely incredible, you know, winning a major trophy, getting to the final of the Scottish Cup, all that sort of stuff. I mean, you know, for a town, Dingwall's got a population of 5,000. So I mean, what they've done is absolutely incredible. And that kind of, I suppose that makes me really proud just because that's where I come from.
Who were your footballing idols?
Well, I think growing up, and this is a long time ago, and you'll know him by reputation, Pele, the great Brazilian. I guess the first, you know, glamorous football I saw on the telly was maybe a World Cup featuring Pele. And I guess, you know, when you're young, these things stick with you kind of forever. So, I mean, there have been loads of great players since. I mean, Maradona died recently, and there was a great sort of debate going on about who's the best ever footballer, and the likes of Maradona's up there, and obviously Messi and Ronaldo of the current players, you know, are up there as well. But for me, I think it would be Pele, and there's something about Pele and that iconic sort of Brazilian strip as well, which kind of seems to represent for me, you know, really exciting times in football.
What got you interested in football?
Well, I probably just watching it on TV. I guess my dad was, you know, liked football. He wasn't a fanatic about it, but he liked football. But I guess it was probably just school. You know, it was just when you went to school, it was just one of the things you did. You know, you played sport. If you could play sport, you played sport, and you know, it could be rugby or it could be basketball or whatever. And I guess football was the one I liked most. And the minute I played football, I just fell in love with it, to be honest. And I haven't fallen out of love with it yet. So,
Favorite game you've watched?
favorite game, loads of them. I mean, the Scotland England game at Hampden sticks in the mind, you know, because we were so close to beating England when Lee Griffiths scored those two long-range free kicks, and I was commentating on STV. It was at the time live on the game, and just going absolutely mental, as you can imagine, when those two free kicks flew in. And of course, we all thought that was it. We've beaten England, and then Harry Kane spoiled it right at the end. But I mean, you know, for 87, 88 minutes or whatever it was, I mean, that was fairly joyous watching Scotland beating England.
What was it like being the main BBC Scotland main commentator? Well, football commentator, should I say?
Yeah, it was great. No, it was great. I mean, you know, I've been really lucky. You know, when you ask me about big games and all that, it's quite difficult to answer because I've actually been at so many games and things like the 1998 World Cup when Scotland played the first game against Brazil, the reigning champions. To be commentating on that was pretty special. And through my career, I mean, I've probably done as much presenting of programs as I have commentating. So, I've just been to so many big games, so many big tournaments and all the rest of it. And so obviously, I kind of, like all of us, I missed it really badly when Scotland weren't qualifying for finals, so it's great that they've got back to the European Championship finals. Let's hope they happen in the summer, because there's maybe doubts about everything at the moment. But it's great that Scotland have finally qualified, because I couldn't quite believe year after year that we didn't make it. So it's a big relief to finally get there.
And it was quite ironic as well, because Marciano was in goals for Israel.
That's right, yeah. Ophir Marciano, yeah. But we found a way to beat him.
We sure did. What was it like being on BT Sports?
Really good. Yeah, I guess I've been on there for a few years now doing the European. I think the first season I did the Champions, Celtic were in the Champions League, and I did that. And the last 2 or 3 years, it's been Rangers that I've followed in the Europa League. But yeah, there's something really exciting about European football. And it would be nice to think that the best Scottish teams should be in the Champions League, which is the best tournament. But I guess you find your level. And at the moment, that's where we are. And obviously Rangers are still going in the Europa League as well. But now I think these are really exciting nights when you hear the theme music going. And it's a chance for Scottish teams to test themselves against some of the some of the better teams in Europe as well. So no, I really like European football. I find it really exciting.
Best match you've commentated on?
Well, I mentioned I mentioned that the Scotland England game, the Lee Griffiths game at Hampden, the opening game of the World Cup in France. I was in Seville when Celtic got to the UEFA Cup final. In fact, BBC covered most of the games en route to that. So there was Celtic beat Liverpool and Blackburn, who were really big English Premier League teams at the time. I mean, there's just been, when I was a kid commentator, and Aberdeen beat Real Madrid to win the European Cup Winners' Cup yoinks ago. So yeah, I mean, the game, it's a really difficult question to answer, Darren. That just because I guess I've been to so many games, and I've loved so many of the games that I've been to.
Best player you've seen?
Best player I've seen, well, Pele probably. In answer to your earlier question,
Yeah.
Pele, of all time, probably Pele. Best player I've seen in Scotland, probably Henrik Larsson. I would think. I mean, Rangers had some really great players when Dick Advocaat was signing all the Dutch stars who were playing here. But I would think over time, he'd 7 amazing years at Celtic. He didn't like doing interviews. He just liked doing all his talking out on the pitch. Henrik Larsson was an incredible player. And I guess, when you see what he went on to do, he went on to play for Man United and Barcelona as well. You can see the quality he had, and you can see how lucky we were to have him in Scottish football, I guess. I mean, I suppose if he was scoring against your team, you didn't like Henrik Larsson, but he was a really special player.
Best Edinburgh derby you've commentated on?
Oh, there's a tough one. Now, I probably need you to help me at this point, but I mean, I think what I would say, Darren, about the Edinburgh Derby is just, I've loved being at them in the past. I mean, I can't imagine being at one at the moment with no fans, because I've been at so many where I've hardly been able to hear myself think doing the commentary or presenting or whatever I've been doing. Just because of the noise that the Hibs and Hearts fans make when they get together, whether it's Easter Road or Tynecastle. I would struggle to pick one out, to be honest, but I've been at some absolutely amazing ones. And, I guess we're obviously missing it at the moment because they're in separate leagues, but I guess that'll probably be only for a season. I would imagine Hearts will get back next season, and hopefully by the time they're back, we'll have fans back as well, so we'll be able to enjoy that amazing atmosphere again.
I think the best Edinburgh Derby that I've watched was the 2-2 in the Scottish Cup.
Who scored in that one? Remind me.
It was Jason Cummins and Paul Hanlon.
Oh yeah. You don't remember the Hearts goal scorers, do you?
Best thing, no, sorry. Best pundits you've worked with.
Oh, that's a tough one, and that's a sure way of me offending everybody that I don't mention, isn't it? Because again, I've worked with so many pundits, the likes of Michael Stewart and Stephen Thompson at the BBC. Probably off the top of my head, I would go for Ali McCoist, who I've done quite a lot of commentaries with. I've done other shows with him as well, but I suppose recently I've done quite a bit of BT Sport commentary in European football, Europa League with Rangers with him. And sometimes when you're working with Ali McCoist, it feels like you're just standing beside the bar with a pint in your hand and you're having a chat about the football. It feels really relaxed and it feels, just very entertaining and enjoyable and all the rest of it. So I guess working with him is a pleasure.
But in reality, you're standing at a stadium with a microphone in your hand.
Yeah, no, I'm just wishing I had a pint in my hand, to be honest.
Best Old Firm game you've commentated on.
Best Old Firm games. You're probably sussing from this that I've got a pretty bad memory because I find it difficult to sort of plough through all the games that I've been at and sort of pluck out just one. It's really difficult. I mean, it's probably a similar sort of answer to your question about the Edinburgh Derby. It's just it's just an incredible game that. Sometimes the atmosphere can get poisonous. There's no doubt about that. But the noise that you get from an Old Firm game is just. The first one is maybe the first one I went to. The first game was the most incredible one because I think you probably never, when you haven't experienced it before, you don't really know what it's like until you're there and you're inside either Ibrox or Celtic Park. And you just get that wall of sound when the teams come out, and it's absolutely deafening. So it's just it's an incredible atmosphere. Picking one out would be difficult, but they all have a sense of drama about them, no doubt.
Funniest story you've heard whilst being a presenter.
Oh, you've got some tough questions for me here. The funniest story, I don't know that. I mean, that's real pressure because what I would think is funny, you might not think is very funny. But I mean, there was a story there was a story way back when I was doing radio commentary in Aberdeen, and it was a European game, and there was a minute silence at the start of the game, and I didn't know what the minute silence was about. So during the 60 seconds, I was trying to work out what I'd seen or heard that would explain why there was a minute silence. Aberdeen were playing a Swedish team, and the only thing I'd read in the paper was that the Gothenburg goalkeeper's uncle had died. So I said on the back of the minute silence, and that silence was for the uncle of the Gothenburg goalkeeper who died during the week. And then, of course, at the end of the match, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, who'd been sitting beside me at the game, she said, she nudged me and she said, maybe you should read the front pages of the newspapers now and again. Did you not know that the Swedish Prime Minister had been assassinated? So I think that's probably what the minute of silence was all about. So I made a complete arse of that one.
Well, these things happen.
Thank you for being so understanding.
It's not a problem. Best thing about being a presenter.
Best thing about being a presenter. Well, it's probably the best thing about being at football matches, because I guess, in the old days, presenting used to be in the studio. You'd be somewhere different from the game. You'd be back at the BBC or in at STV or wherever you were going to be. Nowadays, presenting tends to be at the game. You're at the match. So it's much the same as commentating. You're just part of the game. You're able to enjoy the game. I love, when you're presenting, I love having good guests alongside. I like the pressure of television, because obviously if you're on live, it's if you're doing live television, it's a fairly good way of getting a custard pie in the face if you get things wrong. So the other side of that is it's really good when things go right. And I think what people don't understand maybe watching television is that there's a lot happening behind the scenes. I've got an earpiece in and there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's very satisfying when it goes well. So I enjoy that side of it. And people ask me, Darren, if I prefer presenting or commentating. And I guess my answer has always been that I enjoy both, and it's been great to do a mix of both. And it's never really been my choice. It's usually been when I've moved maybe from one company to another, it's been somebody saying, I'd like you to present or I'd like you to commentate. And that's kind of decided it for me. I don't think I've had a great deal of control over my own career. I think people have just kind of told me what to do, and that's been fine. And whether I'm presenting or commentating, I don't really mind, but it's just great. It's great to be at a football match.
Funniest thing you've heard as a commentator?
Funniest thing I've heard. Ooh. But I don't know. It would probably, I imagine it, going back to one of my earlier answers, it would probably have come from Ali McCoist, because he tends to be pretty amusing and he comes up with some fairly bizarre stuff in the course of a game. That'd be my best answer to that one.
Best thing about presenting?
Best thing about presenting, well, I guess I've probably answered that one. But I think just getting to the end of a program and feeling that it's gone really well. I think that's really satisfying. And just if I find that if I'm enjoying a program, then it's going well. Because if a program's not going well, then I'm generally not enjoying it. So if I get to the end and I feel pretty happy about how it's gone, and I've had a bit of fun, I've had fun doing it, then probably the program's gone well.
Best studio you've worked in?
Best studio, well, probably BBC. I would think probably the most studio work I've done has been at the BBC, and yeah, they do it well. Obviously, they've been doing it for a long time, and there's been all sorts of technical advances along the way, and things have changed along the way. But yeah, I would say probably BBC. But as I was saying to you earlier, I guess most football shows now are, Sports Scene, I suppose, is still done from the studio. But in terms of live matches, most games are now done on location from the ground.
How long did it take to record?
How long does it take to record?
Sports Scene.
Sports Scene, no, Sports Scene goes out live. Sports Scene is live. I mean, back in the old days, there were quite a lot of programs recorded. That was a thing, but it's not really anymore. The programs you see on telly tend to go out live, and I've always preferred doing live broadcasting anyway, because I think you're on your game, because you're under a bit of pressure and there's not a safety net. Whereas if you're recording, you could almost stop the recording and then start again if you make a mistake. So when you're doing it live, you just can't afford to make a mistake. So that it's probably a good pressure to have.
Now, I might be wrong in saying, but did you commentate on the 2016 Scottish Cup final?
No, I presented it, Darren. I was in the studio.
Oh yeah,
So
you
I was,
presented it.
yeah, so I was there. I was there for that incredible day for Hibs. I was wondering how long it was going to take you to get around to mentioning that, but I knew you would. I knew you would. No, that was. You know, I get. You know, you're talking about special games, and I find it difficult sometimes to remember all the special games I've been to. But that certainly was one. You know, the fact that Hibs hadn't won the Scottish Cup for so long. I mean, that was pretty amazing. The David Gray header and all the rest of it. You could tell me much more than I could tell you about it. But no, that was it was great to be there for that piece of history.
What's Michael Stewart and Tomo like off air?
Tomo is mad as a box of frogs. Yeah, he's a madman, but he's a good guy as well. And he's obviously presenting the show now, so he's into a new area, stretching himself into a new skill. But no, Tomo's really good, nice guy. I got on well with Michael Stewart as well. Michael has his own opinions on things. Sometimes he winds people up. In fact, quite a lot of the time he winds people up. But I enjoy working because he tends to tell things like they are. You know, he says it like it is, and I quite like that.
Isn't he quite into his politics?
He is indeed. Don't get Darren. The advice is don't get him started. You know, because if you say something to him and then he's off and running, so I tend to talk football with him or anything apart from politics, to be honest.
No, because obviously when I interviewed Chris McLaughlin, that's what he said.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But obviously, thanks so much for coming on and talking about your career.
No problem. It's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, so it's been great.
But I'll keep on talking to you after I stop recording.
No sweat.